any items that pertain to the commission's charge and responsibilities. Mr. Smith, I guess that means you're the only possible one. So if you're all set, we're all set. Oh, he's muted. Okay. Hearing nothing there, we can move on to the approval of minutes. This is for our last meeting, January 25th, 2022. And I guess since both Connie and Brenda weren't there, you probably need to abstain. So just be the two Toms, right? So I'll make a motion to approve the minutes that Liz wrote up for us on that meeting as submitted. Oh, I did make one. The one change I noticed was that Sean, our new guy, was absent too, and he's not on the list there. So he needs. I'll add him onto the absent list when I send it in. Is there a second?
I second it.
Okay, and that's just you and me. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor? Aye. Aye. Okay with that, Tom?
Aye.
Okay. And
yep, I did.
The other two will just abstain since you weren't there and can't vouch for what we did or didn't do. Although it's all here, I assure you. Okay, since Liz isn't here, as far as I know, there's no treasurer's report at the moment, so we'll just skip over that. For chairman's report, item 4, I had a couple of things briefly here. The first is we got kind of a bad boy letter from the town, Chris Cotta, our administrator. I guess we're supposed to be doing annual reports, and ours, along with a bunch of other committees, is due in January, but a lot of the committees either didn't know that or weren't reminded of that till now. So we're a little bit delinquent on that. So I'm going to try to put something together in the next week or so we can just send it in. We haven't had a lot of meetings in the past year, of course, due to COVID and that. So there's not that much to report, but we'll get something out. But so we're working on that. The other thing was I got an email from an individual named Raphael Wexler, who lives in the Winnizimit neighborhood of Tiverton. And he's interested in getting involved in some of the things that we do. I just got this yesterday, so I haven't had a chance to talk to him yet. But he might be a possibility if we get an opening for a new person. I just got to find out what the level of interest is in that, and see what he might be willing and able to do to possibly help us on stuff. Brenda, your video disappeared. Okay, you're back. Okay, there we go.
Yeah.
All right. That's all I had on chairman's report. If there's any questions, if not, we can move on to item 5, which is brief announcements. If anyone has any brief announcements that they would like to bring up for things that aren't already on the agenda, we can do that now. Anybody? Wow, we're going fast tonight. All right, that brings us up to the first item under new business on which is review of an environmental review statement, or ERS, for Vivian and Wilburner Gomes, 50 Luke Drive, Tiverton, Rhode Island, Assessor's Plat 216, Lot 610, construction of a swimming pool and associated concrete deck, stormwater infiltration trench, Stafford Pond Watershed Overlay District. Mr. Smith, you're on. If you want to unmute so we can hear you. If you want to just, yep, we can hear you now. If we want to just introduce this, I did send this out to everybody who can access email from the commission, so people should have it. But if you can give us a brief summary, that would be great.
Sure. The property is at 50 Luke Drive, which is just at the Stafford View subdivision, right across from the Town Recreation Center. Fairly recent subdivision, probably started within the last 6 years or so. This house was constructed about a year ago. The lot size is 37,800 square feet, thereabouts. It's part of a rural subdivision. It's in the Stafford Pond watershed. There's an existing house, septic system, rain garden. It's served by town water. Let's see. property is approximately, the nearest the nearest wetland is about 330 feet from the proposed work. It's about 265 feet to the nearest portion of the property line. From the pond, we're going to be approximately 400 feet away from the edge of the pond. Again, it is in the watershed, so anything that we do has to have an environmental review statement done. And this was forwarded to you from the planning board. They're proposing to put in an 18 by 40 in-ground saltwater swimming pool. The saltwater feature is helpful environmentally because it doesn't require storage of containers of chlorine that would normally be added to the pool for disinfection. The pool itself has salt is added to that, and then there's a filtration system that actually converts the sodium chloride and pulls the chlorine out of that, so it creates its own disinfection chlorine. I'm going to use a cartridge filter, so there's not a large need for any backwashing or anything like that. Again, we are quite a ways from the pond, but that will help minimize any potential for any pollution. I don't see where there would be any, but that's another mechanism to try and help environmentally. Between the pond and the property, there's the gas easement, and it's all vegetated. It's all in a natural state from the gas easement, which is pretty much grass, and then you've got a wooded area to the north of that section between the gas easement and the pond. We are proposing a deck around the pool. There will be an infiltration trench to capture the stormwater that would normally flow unchecked off of the deck. Per the town standard, we're trying to capture at least 1 inch of rainfall over the new impervious surface. So we're trying to be stewards with relative to stormwater. Silt fence or silt sock will be used during construction, so we don't have any unchecked runoff, any sedimentation that might occur. Also, use a construction entrance if that's necessary during construction, so we're not tracking mud and debris out into the street. The normal prohibited uses that are listed under zoning would apply here, and go through them if you want to. They're the standard list that was taken right from zoning, such as storage of petroleum or refined products in excess of that required for normal heating of the structures is prohibited. Storage of hazardous waste is prohibited. Disposal of solid waste other than brush native to the site is prohibited. Again, if I can continue if you prefer, or I can, it's the ones I read to you every time we have an environmental review statement.
Well, let's see if we've got, so I've got a couple of questions and other
Sure.
people too. So, so when I looked at the map of, I don't know, the pages aren't numbered, but I think it's the very last page, or almost the last page, it shows where the pool is, where the house is, and then it almost looks like if they build the pool, they don't have a place for another septic area if in fact the existing one were to fail. Is that a concern at all?
So that used to be a concern that where DEM required us to have an alternate area for the septic system. And that's an area served by public wells. It didn't apply in areas served by town water.
That's okay.
They've since gotten away from that, and it's no longer required. The thought process is that if there's an issue with the septic system, it can be replaced in kind, contaminated soil removed, septic sand and gravel being brought in place of that, and then the system. It's not on DEM's requirements list anymore.
The other thing is when you have a pool like this, I guess occasionally, like when you vacuum it or clean it or things like that, there can be a discharge. Can you explain how they'll handle discharges like from the pool? So it wouldn't go into the pond?
So what we've called out is a cartridge filter, which doesn't require the backwashing that you would normally have with a sand or an earth filter. There's a series of cartridges that go within the filter itself, and that traps any of the debris. There's a skimmer, and the skimmer would remove any of the floatable leaves, twigs, those sorts of things. And then the filter and the cartridge would remove any of the suspended material. Doesn't need backwashing.
Yeah, the pool's going to have like a vinyl liner, or is it going to be like a hard material like a tile or something?
I believe it's going to be a gunite pool. A sprayed concrete type of pool.
Okay.
I believe that's the case, but I'm not 100%. But it is in ground, so that in the event that there was ever the above ground pool, if it collapsed, then you have a huge flush of water that would come out. This would be pretty much at grade, so you wouldn't have any water that would discharged in any volume.
Can you describe the grade in general between this property and the pond? Is it how steep it is?
So it's I guess moderately sloping, is probably the term that I would use. Probably in the 5%, 5 to 10% range.
What would you estimate?
It flattens out at the gas easement, and then it gets a little bit steeper from the gas easement down.
Right. What would you estimate the drop is from this property down to the shore?
Oh boy. Bear with me a second. Don't have that right in front of me, but I would say there's probably at least a 25-foot drop, possibly more.
And there's a band of wetlands in between that would serve as kind of a buffer to any kind of, let's say for some reason there was a water discharge, it would go in there first before it would enter the pond.
Correct. And it would flow overland for 250 plus feet before it got to that point. So you would see some uptake of any pollutants or potential pollutants in there and the wetland itself.
And everything north of the pipeline easement is basically in its natural state and vegetated.
That's correct. And that's all protected open space. There is a phase 2 portion of this project that hasn't really kicked off yet. They started to rough that in a while ago. That portion actually does cross over the gas easement, but this phase kept everything on the south side of the gas easement. North of
that phase would be to the west of the road, heading west.
That would be to the east back towards Dunkin' Donuts, right?
Towards the intersection there. Yep.
Correct.
Okay. Those are my questions. Anybody else have questions for Mr. Smith?
I was just curious. I remember in our other discussions, and maybe this doesn't apply, that if we had other people near the pond that were building, and there was a specific requirement about permeability of the structures, that was, if it impacted, then that could impact the permeability of the soil being impacted by concrete, as an example. How does that apply? It has no applicability to a pool, which is concrete, and
so typically the pool has some what I would call freeboard, which is the pool is typically not filled right to the brim, so when you get a heavy rain, there's some volume that's contained there. We normally try and protect the environment from the first flush effects during a rainstorm. So what we've designed is a filtered trench around the decking of the pool, so that any dust, debris, bird droppings, what have you, get collected in that. And we've sized it to account for 1 inch of rainfall plus over that impervious surface. And that's the town and state standard that we've been following.
Okay. Well, I guess in retrospect, what I'm thinking is perhaps wrong. And the fact is, people fill it first with water, and whatever rains in it will eventually spill out and go back to the environment. So it's really not, you'll call it, impacting permeability, I guess, in a way.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and the infiltration trench is supposed to mirror the effect that you would have if you didn't have an impervious deck, so that that water gets
Sure.
recharged into the groundwater to kind of
Yes.
assimilate the pre-construction pattern.
Yeah, I understand. Okay, yeah, it's clear now.
Okay, any other questions from members of the commission?
No, I'm all set.
Richard, is that you? Looks like we've got someone else online, but no video, and they're muted at the moment. And their hand is raised. All right, well, I'm not sure exactly who that is, but okay, is there any other questions? Connie, you're all set?
Oh, I just want to know what the heck nips are.
Oh, we're getting to that.
I know. I
You
just
might
don't
not
know
wanna
what
know
it is.
Yeah. Okay. If there are no other questions, is there a motion to endorse the environmental review statement as submitted?
I
I'm not
will make a
against
motion.
it.
Okay, Mr. Malinsky will make the motion. Is there a second?
I'll
I'll
second the
second it.
motion.
Well, we'll let Connie do it. We'll give you the next one. We'll be democratic. So, okay, any further discussion on this particular environmental review statement? Hearing none. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
I
Anyone opposed?
Can you hear me, Tom?
I can hear you, but there's a very long echo, or at least at my end there was.
Yes.
It sounded like I can hear you, hear you, hear you, hear you. Yeah, it sounds better now. Okay, you're back on mute. Okay, now we should be able to. Yeah, well, now we can hear you a bit. Yep. No picture though, no video. But that's fine. Okay, so nobody was opposed, right? I guess I got to take notes here since our secretary isn't here. So let me just make sure it's 1
There
second.
was nobody opposed.
Right. So Malinsky and then Connie. And so 0. Okay. All right. So that one's done. Mr. Smith, we thank you as always for your information and your way of explaining things to us to make it understandable. And hopefully you have a good night.
Thank you as well. Appreciate your time.
And I'll have a letter out to you shortly and to plan.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
Okay, that lets us go on to item number 2 under new business. Connie's question about nips. Letter in support of legislation to ban the sale of nips in Rhode Island. I did send that out to people that have access to email again. I think I put that in your envelope too, right, Connie, or did I not?
I don't have anything else in the envelope.
Just the agenda. Okay, maybe I didn't have it set by then.
Yeah, just
What-
the agenda.
All right, well, what this is what would I call it? An initiative by a member of our legislature to try to ban the sale of those little liquor bottles, the little plastic ones that hold maybe an ounce or two that you find scattered all over the road as litter.
Oh, okay.
Apparently they can't even recycle them because they don't go through the machine. They're too small and dense. They depend on blowing air across things and moving plastic containers with the air, but these really don't work too well. So they don't even want them in the recycle thing. They just apparently trash them if they get up to the recycling center at the landfill, main landfill, not our landfill. So they become a problem, and also because they're so small that we're finding them along the road. I know when I pick up litter along Main Road, they're the most common container that we get. And they're so small, you can hide it in your hand. And the idea is people are drinking with them because they can hide it or ditch it really quick. If they have a bigger bottle, they tend to leave the bottle in the car till they finish it because they don't want to throw away money. But these, it's like one gulp, you're done, out the window, and you can't really be, I guess, arrested for holding or having an open container because it's already out the window. So and committing and contributing to litter. So at the last meeting, we talked about this a bit. There is this rep, David Bennett, who I think is from Warwick, if I remember right, who has a bill that would ban the sale of basically these things. Any bottle that contains or container of alcohol smaller than 100 milliliters, which it's about a fifth of a pint, which would encompass these things. And of course, from the litter perspective, it would be very helpful too. So the problem is if we do this, Massachusetts can still sell them. They're not illegal there. And of course, we border Massachusetts. So we might not see that big of a reduction in Tiverton. Places like South Kingstown or Narragansett that are away from the border probably would, but we might not. But it's a beginning at least. So I was directed to put a letter together in support of this that could be sent to Representative Bennett. And I'm going to send it to all the senators and reps that represent our town as well. I put it in with the emails so that if there's anything that people think needs to be added, things that that I might have put in you don't like. What I also did, we briefly talked about it at the meeting, but I thought since we're writing to this guy about trash and things that could be banned to really help the litter problem, I added in plastic cups like you get from Dunkin' Donuts and all these other places. They used to be wax covered paper, but they switched to this plastic. And the problem with the plastic, of course, is that when it gets run over, it just doesn't squish. It petals. I call it pedaling. I don't know what else to call it, like a flower. And then the individual petals of the flower break off. So you get all these small pieces of plastic that then can go down storm drains and get in the bay or end up in wherever the storm drain empties. It's just, they break up, there's more pieces. It's not like it's just one piece that got run over. So I personally, since I wrote the letter, I'd love to see these plastic cups go and we can return back to wax covered paper, because that's at least easier from a trash perspective. The other thing, of course, are the lottery tickets, especially the instant win scratch off ones. People buy them, they scratch them off in their car, they don't win, and they throw them out the window, probably because they don't want their spouse or significant other to see how much money they've spent on lottery tickets that didn't win. The ones we find are not just $1, $2. I mean, I find $10 ones, $20 ones.
Yep.
It's amazing.
Yep.
And the idea here would be that the legislature could pass a new law that would make a second drawing for these tickets maybe a few weeks later, so people would not throw them out of their car. They would take them home, put them on the counter, and then check them against this new list of potential winners that would come out a little bit later. So if they lose, they'll throw them out in their own trash now, not on the street. If they win, they would take them to a business that sells the tickets and collect their money, and that business would throw them out, and it would get a lot of them off the street. So that's basically what the letter goes over. And all right, I've talked enough. Be interested to hear what other people think.
So
I
Tom,
like the le-
during the pandemic, I joined the litter committee.
Oh, you did?
Well, I did, because I've always been that person to pick up litter. So I thought, well, let me get the bags from the litter committee and be able
Right.
to take them, right? So that has increased my awareness of how much trash there is deposited along the road. And particularly, I have to say, you will find way more nips bottles after a snowstorm. Because
And
my
why
theory is
that?
the plow drivers use them to stay awake.
But now that's why all those mailboxes get hit by the plows.
I'm telling you, it's only a theory.
Or maybe the
But
people,
that's
who-
beside
maybe
the
the,
point. There are a lot of nips bottles around, and
Yes.
certainly, I mean, I have to say, I think, as liberal as I am, I'm a little bit ambivalent about this one, because I think some of the reason people buy them is also because they're so affordable. So
Right.
I don't.
But they
wanna
buy
be
them in a
pro-
big pack, apparently, like not just a 6-pack. They come like in a pack of 18 or so. There is a
Yeah,
picture
you
in
can
the
do
article.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've seen that. So I'm going to say I do support it, but a piece of me feels like, couldn't that be another something that could be in a wax or some other container that is biodegradable? But I don't know. I don't know. So I would say I'm prepared to be a signatory to the proposal. Yes.
Hey, Tom, can you hear me now?
Loud and clear, much better, Richard.
I'm sorry. Sorry about that. My life in the I've had a hernia operation, cataract surgery. My wife's had a new knee, and everything's been messed up.
Well, I'm not going to be able to recognize you. Everything's brand new.
Yeah. Plus,
You're
I've
going
got
to be a brand new
5,000
man when we see you next time.
I know,
Plus
you better come
5,000
wearing a
emails.
carnation in your lapel, Richard.
Anyways, Tom, I have to
Yes,
give
sir.
you credit. You're going against the liquor companies. You're going
Yes.
against the lottery. You're
Yes.
going
I'm Dunkin' Donuts.
and Dunkin' Donuts on top of
It's
that.
like the Holy
You know what,
Trinity,
You
Tom.
better.
But you got to agree with me that these are major contributors to what we pick up.
Oh, absolutely,
yeah.
Tom, you're absolutely right. But if
Yeah.
you recall, go back a few years when we tried to get rid of those witches' britches.
Yes,
Remember
What
how
are they?
those
plastic bags.
plastic bags that get caught in the trees?
Oh, yeah.
Well,
There was a contest to name them, what to call them when they get stuck around in all the vegetation, and apparently witches' britches won.
Okay,
Anyhow.
well, possibly that's
You
a
are-
little
you are
sexist, but
Tom.
whatever.
Tom,
It
you're
wasn't our
fighting an uphill-
contest.
Tom, you're fighting an uphill battle on that one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, the thing though with the lottery, we're not really banning them. What we would be doing
No.
was getting them off the street by having a second drawing. I mean, I think the state is making a huge profit on it, because I mean, we see $10, $20 tickets. These are not cheap tickets.
Yeah. No, I
No,
agree,
you're
Tom.
right. You're right.
I think
I
a
have
lot
to
of that's
say,
just money that's been just dumped on everybody.
if whoever's idea that was, it's a stroke of genius, because I can't see how you could possibly reconfigure how those scratch tickets are manufactured, but to have that second drawing is a really great idea.
They all have serial numbers just in
they
case
have
there's a
that,
question.
Tom.
Yeah.
Tom,
Yes, sir.
they actually have those second drawings on some of those tickets.
They do?
They do.
Well, I think, isn't it where you
Not
have
on
to
all
fill
of
out
them,
your
Tom.
name and address on the back and you mail it in, and then there's a second drawing?
If they're calling for that particular ticket to have a second drawing, yes.
Yeah. I
That
know.
may be too much work for some people.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah, that's why
Yeah.
they toss them, Tom.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. I mean, Richard's right. I don't think filling out your name and address on the back of a card is going to entirely eliminate the problem, because people will still, that not everybody's that motivated to be generous.
Hey Tom,
But could.
here's a perfect example, Tom, what's going on in the state. We had no smoking in Tiverton Casino and in the Lincoln Casino.
Right.
What does the governor do? He lifts the ban on smoking, and now the Tiverton and the Lincoln have smoking. And all through COVID, there was no smoking, even after for the last almost 2 years, no smoking. But the governor actually, in his stupidity, allowed smoking to be taking place in those casinos. With no mindset for the people who don't smoke, and almost everybody's complaining.
Mm.
I mean,
Yeah.
this is
the
ridiculous.
governor's a politician, Richard, that's why. He's trying to get elected again, and he's doing a lot of stupid things right now.
Oh yeah, right.
It's all he
These are the
cares.
kind of things that get you very frustrated, Tom. I understand what you're trying to do. Believe me, I do.
I know. I was first shocked when we were reviewing the plans that they allowed smoking, and the guy said to me, "Oh, we're gonna have this great filtering system and all this and stuff." And my sons went in with their friends to go eat lunch or supper. They left quickly when it was a $20
Oh, yeah.
burger, and they said it stunk in there in the beginning. There was such a the
No,
smell
it's
you
terrible.
couldn't isolate.
Well, it's
So,
one of the few public
it was-
places you can actually smoke still, right?
Yeah, it's
Probably.
unbelievable.
Yeah.
I don't know why they did it. I don't know why they did it, Tom.
They must figure that
Well, that's
somehow it
what-
increases profits.
Oh, yeah, that's exactly right, because the state
Yeah.
gets their
Well,
cut, a bigger cut out of the casinos.
Yeah, yeah.
And no, and I think also it's a compulsive gambler who's probably is a smoker in 99% of the cases. They're smoking away at the whatever they call those machines and stuff like that.
Slot
It's
machine.
probably correlated to that. You know that they compel. You know, and I don't like to make that general idea, but I bet you it is. They're compulsive and they smoke cigarettes, and that's what they want, and that's why they had it right in the beginning. And the lawyer lied to me, essentially, tried to blow some smoke in my ear at our meeting that they're going to have
Well, now you're being polite.
the vent system around. You'll never smell the smoke.
Anyway,
So-
Tom, to
Jane.
go back to the agenda, I'm in
Yeah.
support of it, and thank you for taking
Okay.
that on. The letter's excellent, and I love the accompanying images.
No, Tom,
Yes,
it's a
that
good
was-
idea. Trust me, it is.
Okay.
Yeah.
You're just trying to climb Mount Everest with no clothes on.
Yeah.
Or I prefer Don Quixote charging at windmills, you know,
There you go. Hey,
not thinking they're
I-
dragons.
Tom, I'm with you. I support it too, like Brenda.
All right, so then do we have a motion to send this letter out?
Sure. I'll
Okay,
make the
Richard.
motion.
Is there a second?
I'll
Brenda, you want this one?
second.
I'll
All right.
second it.
Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
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 Anyone opposed? Okay, we'll send it out, 5-0. I'll double check it for grammar and spelling though, too. Mustn't look like an uneducated person in our letters.
No,
Okay.
you do a good job with that, Tom.
Thank you. All right, old business, our old friend aquaculture and Tiverton update, letter to town council and state representatives and senators for 1,000-foot exclusion zone from shoreline or from shore for new aquaculture activities. I also will point out that we did have 2 applications around Sepauwett. One is the Bowen one, which is the one that I don't like, which is right near the mouth of the creek. It's
No,
just
haven't
just
haven't
south.
they,
The one that's near the mooring field apparently has been withdrawn,
Right.
but the Bowen one is still active.
Oh, interesting. I thought that was also withdrawn.
No, it's still active. So we did
Okay.
send the letter. I did send the letter out. Connie, I will send you all of these in the mail so you can see them because you're still having the trouble with the email. What happened was the letter went to the town council and to our representatives and senators, and actually Councilor Cook took an interest in it and contacted me about it because she was confused because the council had endorsed what is being proposed statewide, this 1,000-foot notification requirement to they have to notify anyone within 1,000 feet of the site that they're proposing to use. Right now, there's really no notification requirement at all. And she was asking if we were just endorsing that or if we really meant what the letter said. And I said, well, we meant what the letter said, that not only whatever they want to do for that, that's a whole nother can of worms, but to prevent these constant kind of fights between the aquaculture and the pre-existing uses, why don't we just make all these leases 1,000 feet offshore, away from any possible conflict with anything in the shallow water? Now, it might lead to conflicts in a navigational area, but CRMC would never permit that. So they have to find a place that's away from the shore, but wouldn't be, a hazard to navigation. And that's basically what the letter was advocating for. I have not heard back from any of our state reps or senators, but you know, it hasn't been out that long. But the council did take it up, and they apparently have some interest in pursuing something like this. This was brought to my attention by one of the people down there that showed me that some New York towns on Long Island have a rule like this. And we'll see. I just think we need to do something, because it's just so frustrating to see, again, that we're giving up some of, I call it land, but I shouldn't. This
Giving up
area
too
belongs
much.
to all of us, and it's
Yeah,
being
we're giving
given.
up too much.
Yeah,
We're
we're
giving up
giving
too
it
much.
to individuals for private use for 10, 15 years at a minimum. And at low tide, you can't kayak over it. The things stick up out of the water, especially in this location.
Tom?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, everything you just said is correct. I think another way of addressing this is maybe the state has to say, you know what? How many licenses we have at the moment? Let's say, for the sake of argument, there's 200. What the state needs to say is that is the limit, 200. The only way a new license can come into play is if one of the dealers go out of business, and then that becomes available. It's on the West Coast, they have this it's almost like a liquor license. You just can't get a liquor license on every corner. You have to wait, or you take over somebody else's. And I think in some respects, where do you draw the line with these leases?
Right. Well, what they're drawing, at least for us in the Secana River, is 5%. But that's that. First of all, you can't. These guys don't want to put them in the middle of the channel, and they can't anyway for navigation. So it's really 5% sounds like a small amount, but when you figure where they want to put it, they want to put them in the shallow water along the shore. So 5% might be the entire shoreline.
Yeah,
if
and
you're not careful.
Tom, I'd like to go back to dredging days, but they don't allow it. I mean, you can't have it all. That's the bottom line.
Right.
Right.
Right. But there's no
That's
limit
right.
except this 5% thing right now, which that's a lot of land when you think about it, especially if they stick to the shallows. And there's so many other things that people do there that would be impact. And again, this area is one place where there's free parking. It's a nice, it's not really like a bathing beach, but it's a nice place to sit, enjoy the sunset, enjoy the breezes, go out into the water a bit. And also I was told by the people there, I didn't know this, and I know, Richard, you probably do, but it's a major fishing spot because a lot of the little fish go into the creek and up into the salt marsh at high tide, and then they come back out at low. And guess what's waiting for them out there at the mouth? Bigger predators, right?
Yeah, striped bass.
And that's what the fishermen want to catch. And so it's one of the areas where you can do that, and it's known for that. And this stuff is going to be almost right on top of where they do that kind of fishing. And that use predates this. I don't think there was ever any oysters down this area because the bottom is sand and mud, and you can't grow oysters on that. No. So historically, this was not an oyster growing area.
Most of the oysters were grown in this state was in the West Passage, and from Prudence Island, around Hog Island, Bristol Harbor. That was all in the old days, I'm talking.
And further north too, like extending up almost to Providence.
Oh yeah, sure. Yeah. Up in 100 Acre Cove, up through the Warren River. That was all oyster ground.
Right.
And the Secana was never really, it was more of a shelf of cohogs, Little Neck.
Yeah. My friends.
Right, exactly. And like I just said, Tom, that whole river, all that deep water in that river is practically dead because the state has not managed it properly, period.
Too many stackers.
Yeah, it's double deckers everywhere.
Right. Yeah.
And we never had that when the old days, when I was young, dredging with the whole fleet, 35 boats tied up here in Tiverton. That bottom was beautiful. We had little necks for years, and now you can't get a peck of little necks out in that middle. And that's all the state's fault.
Well, it does bring that question back, and I know you're a big advocate for it, is, why are they pushing this oyster stuff? There was an article where a person was saying that, these oysters basically are gourmet food. They're sold at a real high price. They're not something that a family goes to the supermarket and buys for their dinner. So we're losing our free open space so that rich people in God knows where can eat this gourmet delicacy. Whereas clams are much cheaper, everybody gets them. Why don't they put more effort into maybe what we used to have when they did dredge the bottom for them and things like that in some areas, and spread it out a bit and bring those kind of jobs back rather than taking away people's access. I really, really don't like losing access to the public areas. And remember, the water areas, the shore belongs to all of us. And this is a major project to give portions of it to individuals for their exclusive use.
And the other thing, Tom, under management, under the fisheries management law, or whatever you want to call it, the state can do anything they want to do. They literally did that with stop and dredging. And now they're in a position where they could say, look, we have enough leases out there now. I think that's a number that somebody ought to look into and find out, why does it have to continually get more and more? Why can't it stop, have a leveling off point, just like liquor licenses in a town? They may have 5 and you can't get another one until somebody dies or sells it or what have you.
Right.
I don't see any difference between the two. And the pressure should be put on the state. If anything, the politicians, if they know what they're doing a little bit, which is debatable, they should. Okay, sorry.
You were polite. Go ahead.
Okay.
Continue. I was enjoying it.
You want to get me fired? That's what you want.
They can't fire
from the
volunteers,
unpaid
can they?
job.
Yeah. They can threaten to cut your salary,
Yeah, right.
your compensation.
Oh
But,
boy.
no, I think,
Anyhow,
well, at least I think the letter was well received by the council. They don't have an authority to do that per se, but maybe we can build up a groundswell. I think that Tiverton made one of the biggest stinks, so to speak, about the aquaculture in recent times, and it's had somewhat of an effect because CRMC is kind of back on its heels trying to figure out how to notify people. Hasn't been really that great a job, in my opinion, because
right.
I'm writing a letter that'll go in the Secana Times in the near future about that, because I still think they're letting down a lot of people that enjoy these public areas and have no idea that there's people are contemplating taking portions of it away because they just don't live near it. I mean, people who live there would see this and see and be informed 1,000 feet, whatever. But people like me that live in the North End, we wouldn't know unless it's in the paper. People that come to us from, I've met people there from Virginia, from North Carolina, a lot of people from Massachusetts. They probably have no clue this is going on until it happens. And all of a sudden, boom, it's gone.
Tom, the truth of the matter is, a lot of people in the town don't even bother reading the newspapers.
That's true.
I'm sorry to say that, and it's a sad commentary, but it's true.
Yeah.
No, it's
I get it
absolutely
mailed to
true.
me every week.
Secana Times, Connie?
I get it mailed to me every week.
I like it. It's a nice little local paper for us.
Oh,
It
yeah.
is, but Richard's right. I think people are lamentably ill-informed unless you put something on Facebook, and that's such a cynical thing to say.
Yes, you're absolutely right.
The state would probably censor us for having an unpopular view.
I know. I feel, yeah. And I never wanted to be that crotchety old woman, and boy, have I become it. I'm blaming the pandemic.
Yeah,
Well,
that's all right.
you got to have passion about some of these things. Otherwise, next time you turn around, you'll find out you can't go anywhere.
Right.
Because again, like I said, 5% of the Secana River, there's so many places they don't want to do it or can't do it that really cramming that 5% into a much smaller part of the Toll River.
Tom,
But I think the point that you make about this natural resource being co-opted to feed wealthy people, that's a really good point. I'd actually never thought about that before, Tom. But it's really, I think that's a very important point.
I mean, I'm not against it per se, but it's just
No.
populated out so much.
Right.
I'm
It's got
sure,
to, I think
Tom.
Richard's saying it has to be controlled. And his
Right.
idea of
Absolutely.
there are X amount of licenses issued, and the only way to get a new one is somebody has to give it up by death or selling it along or whatever. That's a
Right
great
now,
idea.
Tom, in the state, just so you're aware, if, let's say I wanted to go lobstering again. I did it all my life. The only thing I'm entitled to do now is for the house, 5 or 6 traps, which is fine. But let's say I decided I want to work again and be a commercial lobsterman. Do you know I can't get a license from the state? The only way I can get a license is to buy somebody out. And you pay big money for that license. Okay?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So why can't they do that with the leases?
Yeah. No, that's
I
an
think because they
excellent
see
point.
all this open area and want you, hey, we're just crying about something and they only want 5%.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, that I think they view it that way. Plus, I mean, who knows what kind of deals are made behind the scenes too. They
Well,
don't get a lot of money off these leases though. I know that because the leases are only like a
well,
couple
that,
$100 a
and you
year.
know what, Tom? That may be another big mistake. If somebody really wants to get into the high market of oysters where they sell for big money, maybe the leases themselves should be more expensive.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
I mean, they're doing it all. I can't say what I want to say.
They are recording this, so we have to be a little careful, you know.
I am. I'm
All
being
right.
a good boy.
You're doing a good job. I haven't heard any real nasty slip-ups yet.
Okay.
So, all right. So
But anyhow,
that's what's happened. And like I said, I think there is some interest on the town council to keep this on the front burner because they sense there are a lot of people in Tiverton. They're upset about this. It's not just as it's been portrayed as a NIMBY, not in my backyard, because this has implications for. I mean, they have tried to get leases off of Fogland. They've tried to get leases in Nanaquacket a lot of times. So it's not
yep.
just, one area that maybe isn't near you. We've got to really unite and just say, we don't want to give up these accesses to this private function that can be done elsewhere, quite frankly. I don't know why they just don't buy a building, put the oysters in tanks and pump the seawater from the shore in there and through there. And they can do that and they wouldn't have to take up any public space.
Well, that's too expensive, Tom.
Well, I understand that, but if you're
Yeah, no, I
if the
hear
goal
you.
is
I hear you. No, this is all natural. You buy some cages, you get the seed, and you service them. And the best way to have them is in the shoal water where it's easy to take care of.
correct.
You just wade in there, blah, blah, blah. Easy come, easy go. I'm sorry.
And the reason I was told by the guy why they do the leases is that if money didn't exchange hands, then the person that's doing the farming can't claim exclusivity to that area because of our constitution for the state. And so this is like a legal maneuver to keep us out because now that person has paid the state to basically take over this area.
Right.
Otherwise, we could walk in there, we could do whatever we wanted because no one's allowed to assert private authority over the waters of the state. But now they can through this loophole, which is, as Richard noted, is ever expanding in the amount of space that it takes up.
And
like
Tom,
I said, you can see some of these at low tide. If you want to see a good one, when you drive on 24 by Gull Cove, that last bit of Gull Cove, if you go by there at low tide, although the new oyster bed field there is all above water at low tide. They stick up out. You could not boat over that. You couldn't kayak over that.
No.
And they say a lot of times, oh, it doesn't affect you because you can just go right over it. I've been to the one that's on that pond near the what's that, the Matunic Oyster House?
Yeah.
If you go further out, off that pond there, they have a huge oyster field out there.
Yeah.
And I've paddleboarded out there. You can't paddleboard over that even when it's not low tide.
Now, Tom, correct me if I'm wrong. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Wasn't there something maybe in the newspaper about they had reached their limit on those ponds over there in that around Matunic?
They actually voted one of them down. I think CRMC said no to one of them because the people put up enough fuss about the recreational use.
And you know what? This is the fellow that came to one of our meetings that has been doing a petition. Do you remember his name? I don't have it in front of me, but He's
There's a
from
whole
this
bunch of
area.
people that are in a group
Yeah,
there.
well, there was one guy that sat through the whole meeting, and he gave some pretty valid arguments, similar to what we're saying here to a
Right.
degree. But the bottom line in all of this, I remember saying to him, well, if you're prepared to dance with the gorillas and spend money, you can probably beat them. And that's really what it comes down to.
Yeah. Or if it's enough people seem to be upset
Oh,
by
yeah,
it, then I
correct.
think they take notice and that they will sacrifice one or two because they don't want to lose the whole shebang.
Right.
So if we make enough stink about, but it could just push it somewhere else.
It almost seems to me if the state had the brass or the will, they could have either have some hearings where you could get up there and say some of the stuff that we've discussed and ask them the questions. Why can't you do it this way? Why can't you have a limited license scenario? Why can't you charge more money? Why does it always have to be in the on the shoreline? Blah blah blah. I mean, but we don't get that ability. We don't get that avenue to pronounce these things to them. You know.
I think the answer is that somehow the legislature feels that this is a good thing for the
Oh,
state,
sure.
and they're actually not neutral. They are on the promotion side of this.
Oh, sure. Yeah. Yeah.
And I
sure.
guess for a while, nobody really seemed to make much of a fuss, and it took hold. And now people realize what kind of a creeping monster it is taking up all this space, that there's a growing, I was going to say groundswell, but I guess it's just a water spell against it. And
But that was the same with solar.
Oh,
yeah,
brother.
like the
Right?
huge farms that take down
Yeah,
the forest.
yeah. Yeah, we're trying to we're trying to limit the growth retroactively.
Well, I think what they want to do there is go small, because I talked to Trish about that, and they really want to put them on existing buildings so we don't
Yeah,
lose any, natural footprints to these
Right.
huge things,
Right.
because we've got places for them to go, and if they go on existing buildings, you don't have to do much in the infrastructure to
Right.
connect it to the grid. It's right there.
right, right.
So it makes a lot of sense, but
Right.
it's not as cheap to do probably for some reason. They'll come up with
Right.
something like that.
Right.
But anyway, so that
And-
we don't have anything really to do on this at the moment. I just wanted to let people know what had happened. The letter did go out, and we're still waiting to see if we get any response from our legislators. So I'm going to move
Thank you,
on
Tom.
to the next one, unless there's anyone else wants to say anything. I know we've talked a lot. Anything from Tom or Connie?
Well, there was a law, I can't remember when it was, but it wasn't too far ago, that claimed that people in the state of Rhode Island should be able to enjoy the shoreline and for entertainment and whatever.
That's actually in the
And that
Constitution,
should
not just a
hold.
law. Yeah.
Yeah.
The problem is that they have to define where the shoreline is, and it led to a court case, a Supreme Court case in the state, where they defined it as the mean high tide line, which nobody can find because it's not what you think it is. It's not the seaweed line. It's not the highest high tide line. It's somewhere in between.
Yeah, and there's also, Tom, where people have people gotta have the right to walk on the boundary between private and the ocean or the water, where they can walk along the beaches.
Yes.
I think there was something about that not too long ago.
Right. I think there's a legislative committee that's revisiting that, because they realize the language about mean high tide is mumbo jumbo, because nobody can find it. You need like a surveyor to determine where it is, which doesn't make sense.
And
So
what do
they're
you do?
basically they're trying to adopt that seaweed line, and then like 10 or 15 feet landward of it or something like that is the limit. Something like that.
And here's the other problem, Tom. Everybody keeps yapping that we're going to have a 2-foot rise within the next 5 to 10 years from the melting of the icebergs. So where does that line start then? Up on the people's property?
Right.
Well, I guess it keeps migrating inward, doesn't it?
Yeah.
That's right.
Bottom line there is it's probably not a good long-term investment to own property right on the shore.
No, now you tell me.
Unless you develop the technology of the Dutch, and they put those dikes up and windmills to pump the water out, that kind of stuff. But I don't know, we'll see what happens. Anyway,
No, I hear you.
okay, the next thing was the oil delivery trucks on Main Road, letter to the fire chief. I did put a draft of that letter out with the email. Again, kind of out, this is what we discussed at the meeting, that we just have it. I've been amazed since, you know, I started doing more exercising and walking, just how many of these oil trucks go up and down Main Road. And you see even the big trailer trucks, because we, Tiverton, are the regional oil depot for this area. There's an oil depot right at the border with Fall River, right across from the sewage treatment plant. That's in Fall River. This is on the other side of State Street, basically. And all these trucks go there to fill up with, I think it's just oil, but it may also be gasoline. I'm not sure exactly what they can get there. Both, yeah.
Both.
And there's a terminal, tankers come up and discharge cargo in via like a pipe thing that goes out and all that. So, and there's about 10 oil tanks and stuff down there. So there's constant truck traffic filling up and then using our roads to get from point A to B. Like I think we service a lot of Aquidneck Island. I think we service a lot of probably Fall River and southeastern Mass, which is fine. But because the nexus of this truck traffic is our town, the concern is, well, you know, we're more likely to have an accident because of the density of these trucks. And if that happens, can we in fact contain the spill and prevent it from, you know, going down the drains and causing a real environmental disaster, either in Stafford Pond or in Mount Hope Bay? And I don't know the answer to that. So the letter is kind of designed to start the conversation with the fire chief and say, you know, do you feel you've got what you need to respond to one of these spills and be able to contain it? Or do you have to depend on a truck coming from who knows where that might take, you know, half an hour to get here? And by that time it's, well, you know, it was a good idea, but we could have used you 20 minutes ago. So, I mean, we do have a fire station right near there. So if it were to happen in that immediate area, I think they can get to it pretty quick, but we don't know if they have the right stuff to respond. So that's what this letter is about. And again, if there are any comments, suggestions for improvements or anything that didn't seem clear or whatever, let me know.
Well, okay, Tom, this is good because now you're taking on the oil companies.
Are you going to volunteer to be my personal bodyguard?
Yes, and Tom, and I'm sure Tom Malinsky will too, because he's a good gunman.
Maybe we'll swap last names a bit. They're pretty similar anyway, so I can be safe for a little while and he can be me and vice versa.
You know what, Tom? You could send that letter to Biden.
Well, but you know,
the problem.
One of the other things, though, I mean, we joke about it, but there's a lot of money sloshing around right now for infrastructure and things. And I'm even wondering, I mean, we'll talk about it a little later, but maybe we could get a grant or something from some of that money to help buy a truck in addition to maybe some of the casino money. But I think since we host that terminal, it's incumbent on us to be able to handle these spills should they occur.
Well, yeah. Has the chief said anything to you about that, or is he just getting?
No, the letter hasn't gone out yet.
Oh, okay.
If we agree this looks good, then I'll send it out, just like the other one. So,
but wasn't he looking for like a ladder truck, a big ladder truck that really wasn't? I mean,
well, right.
That was many years ago. I think when that residential property at the top of the north end they needed it for that. And I
don't think they've ever given up.
Yeah, that was the prior chief.
The Bourne Mills?
Yeah.
No, he's talking about those condos, right?
Oh, the condos. Yeah. Okay.
Because those go like 3 or 4 stories.
Yeah, they're fairly high.
Oh, well, at one time I remember the meeting was saying the one at Bourne Mill that was they needed for that too.
Well, I'm sure that one too.
I think, right. Yeah, but right next to Fall River, it doesn't make sense to spend that much money, you know, on a hook and ladder plus a building to put it in.
Plus,
Well,
you know,
your
Portsmouth,
Right.
Something.
Portsmouth has one as well. So we're between two municipalities that have a ladder truck if we needed to borrow it.
Right.
But I don't know if either of them have like a, you know, a fuel spill response thing that would have enough material that it could contain a spill from one of the, even a small truck, let alone one of these
I
tractor
believe-
trailer ones.
Yeah,
Respect,
No,
Tom, you're
it's a
100% right.
really is. But see what he has to come back
Yep.
with. I think
Yeah.
what really needs to be maybe investigated, Tom, is what is available on the market for picking up a massive oil spill on the road. Is it vacuum cleaners into a bigger truck? You know what I'm saying? What is
Right.
the mechanism to solve that problem, I guess?
Well, I would imagine it's
Well,
maybe a truck
yeah.
like the little oil truck that would vacuum it up into
Yeah,
its own
something
tank.
along-
Yeah.
Well, if you're carrying gasoline, say 12,000 gallons or something like that in one of the big tankers, and it gets in an accident on Sousa Road, corner of Sousa Road and Main Road, you're guaranteed that it could leak down the hill right from, you know, where the condos are, right into the water or into the drain system. That's the issue. So Tom is right in asking them what they have to prevent something like that from happening, if that a huge amount of oil also could go down.
The
Or
other thing they
gasoline.
have too, which I know, is they have these gelling agents. So if
Hmm.
there's a spill of oil and it's in the street, you can sprinkle this solid polymer material into it,
Yeah.
and then it will make the material basically solidify to like a jello type consistency so it can't flow anymore. And then you can get the right thing to scoop it up into the proper type of truck or tub or whatever it goes into.
You got a good idea, Tom, and I have seen a lot of brand new trucks, like Tiverton maintenance, I guess, related to truck maintenance. It was a brand new, huge Dodge truck. I saw them pulling out of the area where the town facility is. They've spent a lot of money, it seems like, on trucks, and maybe this is the time, if they have it because of this COVID crisis, that they have money coming in from the state, is look into something spill equipment, because I can guarantee they don't have it.
The other
Anything
thing too
that
is that
large, they put it.
they put the casino money aside only for capital stuff. So that's what this would be.
Sure.
They're not putting it into the general budget. It's reserved for capital type expenses. So it's a possibility there too.
Well,
So
See what the chief says, and says if he has it or not, and say, why not?
I'll tell you what, if
There
one of
is
these
a,
trucks has an accident near me, I'm running out there with all my containers so I can lower my oil bill a little bit.
That's it.
Yeah.
I'm going to
just had
scoop it up and
an oil
help.
bill
I'm going to be
that
where the
cost
fire department's
$700.
scooping it up as long as I can put it in my trash can to take it home. So anyway, all right. So if people who looked at this or based on the discussion, is there agreement to send out the letter?
The only thing too, Tom,
Yes.
the only thing in the email that you gave your work phone and home phone as being the same, change
Same
that.
number.
Oh, I
because
did,
unless-
right. Okay, yep.
Yeah,
I was
I
doing
saw
this late
that.
at
Unless
night.
you're,
Yep.
unless
Yeah, I
you're
saw
sleeping
that,
at
Tom.
work because you're out 24/7. That's what the other thing is.
Now, if that
To do
happens,
that.
that's not good for anybody.
I understand.
Then I will send the letter out. We'll hopefully have a response back before the next meeting and see what he says.
I
Okay.
miss that you don't put the numbers. I miss that you don't put the numbers on the paragraphs like you used to do, like our formal requirements that we used to do, or we
Oh.
still do at. Yeah.
We can't get the Navy out of the man, right?
I
We
know.
have to do that
I
at
always
work.
did it.
Yeah.
I do that too. I write letters if I have to. I'll put paragraph numbers on them. It's
You know
just
who else
can't-
does that?
can't-
The legal
Who's that?
people. If you do a
Yeah.
patent,
Oh, they do.
or any of the legal stuff, the paragraphs are numbered and every line is numbered. So you can refer to the words exactly.
Mm.
No
I-
doubt
I
about what you're
understand.
talking about.
I still do it. Even though I'm retired.
Okay. Sometimes I do it too. It depends on, this was late at night, but I was trying to get it set, so. All right. Thanks for the catching that. I'll fix that. Where are we? Okay, so new initiative to update underground oil tank inventory. Tom, do you want to talk a bit about that, like you were talking about at the beginning of the meeting?
Yes, well, I called a state supervisor that I spoke to a long time ago, and I asked them what's going on with respect to the latest list, which I could not find on a website. So he directed me to it. And today I sent out to all of you a Excel spreadsheet that had the existing list of tanks that the state is aware of. And I asked him, well, what does that mean aware of? Was there a mandate put out that you had to sign up? He says, no, I don't remember that. It's just that probably people just, applied to the on the site and told them that we have this tank. Whereas, it was not something that they mandated, of course, just like one that was done in the town where it was volunteer to go there. You're supposed to have done it, but of course, who knows who didn't do it. So wherever Tiverton was, I highlighted in yellow, and I had sent it out without collapsing all the columns so that I could see everything on one page. And I noticed, I was quite surprised that out of that list, all of the tanks that are really outstanding, that are still in use, of course, all the gas stations, which are highly regulated. There is one person in Tiverton on this whole list that still has his 4,000 gallons of heating oil, and that's DeLuca on Rich's friend, probably his friend. He's in, let me just say, DeLuca Limited on 683 Neck Road, 4,000 gallons. And it was installed in 10/9/84 in use. Apparently there's a
Neck
law.
Road, Tom.
Yep.
Around the corner.
Yep. Yes, 4,000 gallons. I don't
That's
know,
right.
but apparently there's a law that any tank prior to 1970, they have to do testing on them, and they'll be required to verify. But this is 1970. This is 84. He won't be required for a long time.
Come on.
So
If I may, Tom.
Yep.
What oil company's taking that risk of filling up that tank?
I know. I'm very surprised because I told the guy at the state.
You remember what Wilkerson said? Wilkerson said there's a lot of companies that won't fill underground tanks anymore. Wilkerson won't do it.
I have a friend in Middletown who was buying from Wolf Oil out of Tiverton, and they sent him a certified letter saying they thought that he had an underground storage tank, which he did not. He had it in a basement, and they said we will no longer fill it. So there's no doubt there's people within the town or from other cities.
It might be some independent jobbers,
Yeah, they come in and says, I don't care. I'm just going to sell the 4,000 gallons.
It's interesting that somebody would take that chance,
I know, especially in that area. It's just incredible.
But I think
the church.
The town could pass a requirement that he has to get it inspected.
Well, hell, they do that with septic systems.
Right.
Yeah.
I think they could. So, that could be our approach. If someone's dead set, to keep using it, then okay, prove to us it's not leaking, prove to, get some sort of certified inspection, whatever that entails, to verify the condition of it. And that maybe you have to do that every few years.
The problem with that is if it developed a small leak, he probably would never know it because he wouldn't know whether he's burning fuel in the house and they're just filling it up saying, what I'm saying.
Yeah.
No,
how can you afford to fill that these days, though? Gosh.
Well,
you just don't let it get empty. You top it up.
Can afford it.
I get 100 gallons and I feel like I had a 4,000 gallon delivery based on the price.
Right.
Now, the other thing too is that, let me address the other aspect.
Yep.
As we stated in our presentation to the town, and it still exists today, any residential fuel tank less than 1,100 gallons, which holds heating oil, is exempt from everything. And I says, does that make, I asked the guy, that still doesn't make sense? And I says, why haven't you decided to address that? He says, well, we were probably concerned about impacting people with the cost of doing it. And then he also said to me the last time, 2 years ago, he actually used the word politics. I believe that's really the real crux of the problem is politics. And the State House decided, hey, I got a fuel tank, let's not press this anymore. And so anything less than that, residential, you're exempt from everything. And that does make no sense to me. So if the town should also make a requirement on residential tanks, perhaps, and finding out exactly really what they have by maybe pressing the oil companies to tell us where are they filling USPs, because you can guarantee there's people in the town that are just going to tell them, I'm not going to say anything, it's none of their business. So there are companies that you may say, if we find out you're filling them without telling us, then we will restrict you from entering the town, if they could do that, but that's the only problem.
The town could say you can't fill them, period. They're done.
Yes.
And any truck that's caught filling them is in big trouble.
Sure. So I did send these out, but I updated just as we were talking, and before this, I collapsed all the columns so you can actually on one screen see them all. And I highlighted the ones in reds, which were private residences, and the only one that's left is DeLuca. The rest are closed, and there are commercial ones that are in black, as they classify commercial, like mainly the service stations, and those are, of course, highly regulated, except the Holy Ghost Church still has this 1960 tank of what 100,000 gallons of heating oil. And when I said church to him, he said, well, that would be commercial, but they call it a education private. So I don't know what that means compared to as opposed to a commercial entity, but that's how they listed on this list. But I did mention it to him because 1960 is a long time ago. He says, oh, we know of tanks in Rhode Island that are 90 years old. I was shocked when he said that.
Yeah, that's comforting.
Yeah, it is comforting. So this list, again, only encompasses those people who are willing to register them. And there are some people that only registered 500-gallon tanks. Now, again, they may have put out some notice somewhere, and someone said, oh, I better register it. But in town, we have to address the residential tanks that are never going to be, at this stage, be forced to test unless there's a major outbreak of leaks all over and they finally do it. And that's, I think, where we have to press that. And I thought the last law, when we presented, no one was really willing to do much in terms of that,
Well, you know what should really scare you if you study how products fail, which I've done for work. There's the famous bathtub curve. It looks like a U shape.
Mm-hmm.
There's a high failure rate initially when that's just ones that weren't made right or have some sort of flaws from manufacturing.
Yep.
Then you get to a very low failure rate for a period of time and everybody thinks everything's fine. But then when you reach the end of life of the component, the failure rate shoots up again. So, you could see a whole bunch of them fail in a short period of time if we get towards whatever it takes for corrosion to break through the typical thickness of steel that was used or something like that. So,
no, I agree. It's just that. I guess we have to come up with a game plan.
Yeah. I'll look what you sent, and we'll keep communicating so we can maybe come up with something for next meeting. How's that?
So what I'll do is I'll send this list out again, collapsed with the highlights, so you can all take a look at it and see. Quite surprisingly, the bigger tanks that were registered, a lot of them are closed, other than these few gas stations and a DeLuca person who probably doesn't care at all. And then, but internal to the town, other tanks, all I can say is we have that now very old list of the early 80s, whatever it was, or
Right.
late 80s, that when my friend and I went in front of the council, it's not been updated. And when I spoke to the last chief about doing it, he says, oh, that's going to cost a lot of money, and I'm going to have to go to the town. I'm thinking to myself, wait a minute, people are sitting around and they can enter something in an Excel spreadsheet. When people come in to register his tank, that's not that difficult. But I didn't press them because it's not worth fighting.
Okay.
So that's all I can say about it, and then I think we need to pursue it.
Okay.
And you should see this list. This is quite a big list from all of the different cities and towns in Rhode Island. There's a lot of tanks.
Very
A lot of
tiny. It was
them
hard to read. It was difficult to
sorry?
read quickly.
For you?
Yeah, well, it was the print was very small, is what I'm saying.
I can change. You can go to
Yeah.
view
Right.
on Excel and do it, and you can browse. You won't see all of the columns.
Right.
I have bad eyesight, of course, and I have to struggle. But the point is I just always put a view and bring it up in font size. Go to 135, you'll see it very well. That's what I do. If I was to expand all of it before that, you'd never be able to see all the columns.
Right.
You know,
Right.
And
I get that.
Okay. All right. We're all
but
set
that's
there.
the thing. We have, yeah. I'm sorry, I
Brenda,
didn't mean to
what's in that
ramble
cup?
on.
Hey, Brenda,
Yes.
what's in that cup?
Tea.
Of course.
I
Yeah,
promise
sure.
it is
English.
tea.
Sure.
I
Earl
had the
Grey,
one
hot.
before the meeting started because I didn't want to be inappropriate online.
Yeah. That's what Dean Martin used to say too.
Well, hey, if it was good enough for Dean Martin, it's good enough for me.
That's right. That's
That's why
right.
Ruth Buzzy always kept hitting him with her purse. He was lying about what was in that cup. Okay. Towards a new recycling policy to reduce litter. We talked about this a little bit last time, and we're trying to brainstorm a bit on what we can do, because the feeling is that a lot of the litter in the streets comes from these ridiculously small bins, which seem to lose their lids almost immediately. So then they're all open and they're stuffed to the gills, and the wind comes up and it blows some of the stuff out of there. And I think we need to come up with some way to collect and process our recyclables without that happening, but I'm not really sure how to do it. And I did notice that last night I wasn't able to attend the meeting because I was just too tired, but the council had on its agenda discussion and possible vote to ask recycling committee to consider alternatives to the Tiverton trash bags after 11/30/22, which is when the landfill is presumably going to close. So they may be looking already to what to do with the trash. I kind of like the bags, but we can't do bags for recycling because the recycling place doesn't have the manpower to empty those individual bags as they come in. And then what do you do with the bags? So, I mean, the only thing I could come up with when I was thinking about this was that, well, two things. One is that we might go to one of the containers with the lid where like the one-arm truck picks up, those kind of things. Although the trucks on our routes are not that tight, so those would have to be emptied manually. But they have a lid that's attached at least, so you can't lose. I somehow I lost the lid to all of mine because it's always so windy out here, and they just
throw them randomly off of.
Yeah.
And the way they respect them, they throw them randomly all over the place. They'll get run over, and they don't care. They really don't care. So the other thing too, Tom, is Meg is probably, excuse me, let me interrupt, but Meg is probably was the lowest bidder, and they have these old dilapidated trucks that are not to the state of the art of some of these other companies. So you would have to end up paying a company that is that has the ability, that has that type of truck. They have them in a lot of the big cities like West Warwick and Fall River, and that they have those trucks.
Well, that contract comes up, as Richard well knows, it comes up like every 3 years. And so we
Yeah,
don't
you
have
could
to
force
give
them
it to Mega. We could change the rules and say, look, we want that automatic arm truck. And
Sure.
then the people that bid will have to be ones that have that. Because
But
remember,
then
those
then
garbage
the
trucks now are going to have to drive to Johnston after November
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
our landfill will be shut.
And the other thing too is typically a lot of these towns, they provide, or cities provide free containers that are compatible with those one-armed or double-armed lifters.
Right.
So that's another thing the town that never addressed. When I bought when they were giving recycling bins out, I had to pay for them. I didn't
Right.
mind the bigger
Mhm.
ones, they're good heavy duty. But that's something the town has to consider. That you'll have to essentially tell the people, we will provide you with a recycling bin, a trash bin. And I guess, how's the recycling? Is that supposed to be picked up also? Richard, I didn't remember. I don't know the rules. Is there recycling
We haven't
materials?
had a meeting since COVID
Okay.
started.
Yeah.
But I guess if they're looking at, maybe getting rid of the bags, and I think the alternative would be to go to some of those
I don't
trash cans that can
understand.
be picked up by the truck. So
Sure.
I don't quite understand why they want to get rid of the bags, because you're gonna need the money to keep
Right.
the other recyclable area working and taking care of it. So I don't know what the town has become accustomed to paying for the bags. Why not just leave it alone?
Yeah.
and it seems to divert a lot of trash into recycling. And once we start going to Johnston, if we don't have the right percentage of recycling,
Yeah,
our tipping fees go up.
yeah. I think that, I don't think that's gonna go anywhere, Tom.
I prefer the bags because I think the bags have cut down on litter from trash, but
Right.
the recycling bins are just open. They're always jam packed because they are small, and a lot of people still use those small bins.
Yeah.
And if it's
I use-
windy out, which it is a lot, stuff gets
I
blown
use
around.
2 of them myself. I use 2 of them.
Right. So one of my thoughts was that maybe the town could cancel the pickup if it's too windy of a day. But the problem is a lot of people put that stuff out the night
No,
before,
you
so it
can't
wouldn't
do that.
matter.
No,
That'd be a nightmare, Tom.
Yeah.
Well, a lot of it's already
Couple-
put out anyway, so it's too late.
Yeah.
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 couple
But
of
the other
weeks
thing
ago,
is,
for some reason,
don't they blow when it gets to the destination? Don't they separate out? Because all our recyclables go in one bucket. So don't they
Right.
separate out the paper by blowing it off? But when
Yes.
it's wet, they can't.
Correct.
So I would think if we're looking at making some suggestions, we absolutely need recycling buckets with a heavy duty lid that's already hinged.
Right. So we can't lose it.
Right. And it's either free or it's subsidized, because if it's
Yes.
like a $15-20 bin, people are not going to buy it.
Right.
But that,
yeah, I mean, I think
What
I'm
it comes
sorry, go
down,
on.
Brenda, what it comes
I
down
just-
to is they would have to have a truck that lifts them up hydraulically, because
Yeah.
the ones with lids, you can't dump it out. A man could not dump it out in the rear of the truck because the lid's in the way.
I see what you're saying. Yeah. Yeah.
no,
I mean,
they-
it's an
they
issue.
use-
It's a difficult scenario. There's no doubt about it.
No,
Yeah.
they actually went in other cities like Fall River. They open up the lid and they dump it in the back if they're not using the two-armed device.
Right.
So they do it. The lid stays in the back, and they have two arms in the back of the truck, and it tips it and drops it in. It can be done, but the bottom line is you'll have to force the company that you have a bid, that in the contract or bid and proposal that says you shall have these type of mechanisms to do it with to pick up the 45-gallon trash bins. Either
Yeah.
both
The arguments-
recycling and both trash.
One argument against it too was that they always wanted to be able to see what was in the recycle bin, because if we include garbage and it contaminates the load,
Right.
then the whole
Yeah.
load gets counted as trash.
Yeah.
And so the argument against a bin with a lid really is that, especially one, if it's done by the truck automatically, there's no guy dumping it. They can't see what they just
Right.
dumped in.
And the
So
other
Tom, do
argument,
you really, Tom,
there
do you
was
really
another
think Mega
argument
would
about
make-
a lot of these places have long driveways. for them
Yeah,
Big
I was-
bins.
Yeah,
They couldn't, some of the elderly people, they couldn't get them down to the
Right.
road. I mean,
yeah. That's me. I live on a dirt road. I wouldn't be those huge big things. I couldn't get that down to Main Road.
I mean, a lot of people put them in the back of their car and bring them
Yeah.
down,
That's what I do right now.
So, it's got issues no matter what happens.
Yeah,
right.
It's just not a perfect scenario again.
right.
Well, let's keep thinking about it. If there's something that occurs that we can forward to them, because it's problematic in many ways, but
Yeah,
we need to keep our recycling thing up if we want to save money from the trash and extend the life of the central landfill too. So it's important to keep the recycling going, but in a way that doesn't generate all the litter, which I think it does.
yeah. Good suggestion, Tom.
Mr.
2
Malinsky,
weeks
did you want to
ago-
say something there? Did we cut you off?
I
Sorry.
just said 2 weeks ago, I was, 2 or 3 weeks ago, they never showed up 1 week in our part of the town. They
That's
never showed up.
true. Yeah,
And all the buckets were out, turned over, trash was in the street,
yeah,
and then they showed up a week later. And
yeah.
I was shocked that this went on. What
Did
what
you
was
call
deal?
the DPW? What did they say?
Oh no, I didn't, and my wife didn't, so I have no idea. She just
Oh.
pulled them back into the house, figuring they're never going to show up, and we'll put it out the second week. But it stayed out in people's front yards for the whole week, and I guess I should have called.
Yeah,
They probably had a breakdown. Them trucks are pretty beat up.
And they have
Oh,
to go all the way to
I mean-
Johnston and back.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
So
those
the trash
trucks
trucks
wide
just
open.
have to go to landfill.
It's a wonder them trucks
Yeah.
are still running.
I know.
All right, now we're gonna figure out what do we do when a trash truck has an accident.
There you go.
always thinking, Tom.
Yeah.
That's
All
why
right.
you'll have that job, Tom, forever.
Yeah,
Hey, I'm eligible to retire,
Oh, okay.
yeah, but that doesn't mean we're gonna let you.
I don't mean from here,
Are
I
you
mean
gonna
from
put-
work.
Are you going to put 40 years in, Tom?
I know, I got 35 now.
I went 35 years and 9 months and 6 months of part-time, 2 days a week. So I still serve the fleet well for that amount of time. So maybe you could
As long as
consider
it's still
part-time.
fun,
I
Oh,
thank
sure.
you for my service, Tom.
I enjoyed it.
I'm not in the military, I just am a civilian, but
I think you
Okay.
missed Richard's joke, Tom.
Oh, I did? All right.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
Are
I'm a
we
little
done?
bit Sorry. But what is that?
Mr.
What?
Ch- Mr. Chairman, are we done?
No, a couple of things real quick. We got to finish up. So where was it? Okay. Update of the commission's website. We had talked about briefly that, each committee or commission is supposed to look at its website and try to do things to make it more useful to the public, so on and so forth. And one of the things that I suggested was that we do own some documents that are fairly sizable, thick paper documents that occasionally we get requests for that people are looking for, because I think we have the only copy left in town. And I think it would be useful to get them scanned in so there's an electronic copy that we can put on the website so people could access that and look at that. There's reports done by URI on Stafford Pond. There's the Berger report on the the sewer piping of the town and all of that. There's maybe some others of interest. They're hard to find, and sometimes people want to see that and look into what they really say. So I found 2 companies with some help from the people at work that do that kind of stuff. So I'm going to see what they would charge for doing those documents and then, giving them back, put back together. And if it's reasonable, I may have them do a couple of them so we can start making our website look a little more usable, a little more of value maybe to the public at large. But I have no idea what this would cost. but we haven't really used
You know
much
what?
money, so.
You may want to consider, it's up to you. The old company I used to work for, McLaughlin Research, they could scan them in, put them on CDs so we would have them in that format. But you could ask them to see what they charge. So
You think they
we
would
have
use aren't they just wanting to work with the government though, not with individuals?
you could call up Everett Santos and see if he'd be willing to do it. I mean, that's a job. If you're willing, if money could be paid to the company, they'd pay, and their employees are not high overhead, that's for sure, because they're administrative type support. So you could try, and if they don't, what's losing? Have them look at it. I'm
I've
not
got a
promoting
couple
it. I
of
don't know.
small businesses that we could check out too, so.
Yeah, but
None in
MRC
town,
has been always a
unfortunately.
good,
Yeah.
yeah. And I'm not promoting them. I did work for them, but they have always been good to the government, that's for sure. They always did the job very well, and so, but that's up to you.
And if there's anything else that someone thinks might be useful to put on the site, I don't know, some brochure or something that deals with the environment. We have to be a little bit careful about copyright in that, I think. But if there is something like that, or it's something that's in the public domain, like some educational materials, maybe from someplace, we can do that potentially as well. But again, it's up to the individual boards and commissions to do what they want to make their websites a little more interesting and jazzy and things like that. So
How about some dancing girls?
I'll leave that to you. That's beyond my ability to do on the computer.
Okay.
Who was doing the websites? Wasn't it the tax guy, the tax assessor that came into?
The assessor, correct. Yeah, he's in charge of it overall. Right.
Oh, okay. I
But
was
we
wondering if he was
have a
actually-
lot of leeway in content of what we want to put there.
Sure, no, I was just curious who would modify the websites, and I
Yeah,
thought
we
he
would
was
not
the
have to
one that-
modify. We would just say, we would send like this document to somebody and they would put it on. We don't have to know how
Okay.
to put it on or anything.
Yeah, yeah. I
Tom, for the
understand.
sake of argument, how many people ask for these kind of things?
Maybe once every other year or so, but there's no other place to get it. And the other reason I brought it up too is that there was I got a bit of water in the basement this past year or the year before, and it ruined some of the older records.
Oh.
So I'd like to just, some of these are fine, but some of the things that would be irreplaceable, but of great value, like these studies on some of the ponds and things or in the environment. Or for example, if there's an environmental, review statement like that really big one that was done for the casino property,
Right.
we could potentially put that on the website so people could read it instead of having to go to town hall and look at it. So things like that we could do if we find a good place that can do this for us. So we're still looking. I've got a couple of things here. I've noted McLaughlin Research Company to see what they would say if they would do that. So okay, landfill. I guess unless there's anything else, we can move on to blast stuff.
Nothing yet.
Landfill recycling. Nothing yet.
No, not yet.
When they do have a meeting, one thing that again occurred to me as I was writing this up that would be nice to maybe ask Chris Cotta, he's probably on top of this, but just in case he isn't, is again, there is a slew of infrastructure money just floating out there, trillions and trillions, as Carl Sagan would say. And maybe, just maybe, we can tap into that to maybe cover a portion of the landfill closure, because normally they want matches and things, and we've got a lot of money to match. But if we could get even 10% of the cost or 20% of the cost, out of that fund from the feds, it could lower the cost for the town to have to, cover, because the price of that keeps going up. And we've got a lot of the money that's needed, but I don't know if we have every last dollar. And if we don't, maybe he could look into seeing if, because we will have shovel ready plans very soon. And that's what they want, shovel ready to go. Let's spend this now, get it off the books. Boom, let's do it. So maybe we could get some relief from the cost of shutting the landfill down. It's in that green sort of area that they like to see some of that money go to. Maybe we can save a little bit there by tapping into our favorite uncle who lives down in Washington, D.C.
Please.
So if we don't spend it, somebody else will.
Yeah, you're right about that.
It's one thing we know for sure. So anything else landfill recycling? Okay. Connie, tree committee.
Well, there's a very nice gentleman that is on the dog park commission that every time the wind blows and our trees go down, he pulls them back up again.
The ones
Which I
near the
thought was
library?
very nice of him. Huh?
Are you talking about the ones near the library?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, the orchard.
Right.
Plus, I tried to fix one, but I don't have the right equipment. But it's a little bit better. Other than that, they're doing okay.
Okay. That's good news.
Yeah.
Right.
It's
By the
very
way,
windy up there.
Yeah.
the tree committee is on the bad boy list for an annual report too, by the way. I'll just mention that. I think
Well, we
every committee,
haven't,
I think everybody forgot. All the committees are on that, or a bunch of them for January.
Could you tell me did you get an email? I don't, the problem is also with you, Tom, no one should send no longer put T_Malinsky@hotmail.com.
Oh,
The issue with that was compromised sometime in the past. I barely look at it. I kept it because sometimes there's some,
the
things I
Hotmail
need
one
an
is the
email
bad one now?
Yeah, that one I don't even use. It was sold somewhere, and I keep getting stuff from all over the world. And I tried to get rid of it, and I said, I just left it, so that's why the Gmail at monskytw@gmail.com works the best.
I think I
Don't
have
even
both, and I
put that
forget
up.
which one's the active one, so I send them to both.
Oh, no,
will
I
send them to
understand.
Gmail from now on.
Tom, send me
So
the
that
email so
may
I'll
be-
have it in my contact.
All right. Well, I sent you an email on the tanks. You're going to see it.
Oh,
I
okay,
sent
yeah,
it
you
today.
The
did.
oil list,
Yeah.
right?
I will.
Yeah, you did. Okay,
I will
that's
send
the
the
one,
list,
huh?
UST list. I will update it with the one I did a change in it such that it has closed columns and it has highlights that I highlighted where it says permanently closed and the type of fuel. So I'll update and send out tomorrow.
Okay.
So that's the other thing. So Tom, if you have some information on this annual report, we being the older team members, we didn't have any meetings. I didn't want to go to the library or anything like that. And so we've been kind of neglecting that.
It
during
came as an
COVID.
email from the town administrator's office.
Yeah, I think they're using T_Malinsky.
Okay.
And I don't get it in Gmail. And so I guess I can search the Hotmail, but so it's town administrator. Okay.
I'll just
I'll
forward it
search
to
it.
you, all right?
Yeah, would you do it, please? Because I must have 10,000 emails in that Hotmail account, and they're just trash emails that it shows up. I just don't know. And when I did a search on the email, put the email in to determine if it was compromised, yes, it was compromised. So I don't know why.
Also, recycling and landfills on the bad boy list too, the same bad boy list.
Well, I'm not the one who calls the meeting, Tom.
I understand. When they have the meeting, then you can let them know if they don't know already.
Oh,
And both cemetery commissions are on it.
oh yeah.
Anyway,
Well,
okay, are we ready to?
I'll respond.
Okay, I'll forward it on to you.
Yeah.
Okay, I guess we're ready
One other-
to adjourn unless there's something
But
else.
actually,
Yep.
one quick one. Maybe we look in the future. We have all of these quarries going on in the town, at least 2 of them that are active. And this guy on Brayton Road, he just still trying to run his motocross. But I remember reading somewhere in this requirements of this town that once a quarry is deactivated, they're supposed to cover it with dirt and have growth reappear. I know the quarries are still under the state rule you don't touch quarries, but is there a way we could try to get the town to see if they could force that issue such that these defunct or non-working quarries eventually would have to be brought back to a natural state, which could be cost prohibitive, but
I think we'd have to
They
inquire
really-
first to see what the requirement is. There a
Sure.
requirement there to do that?
yeah, I'd
We
like
could
to
get
see
some
if I
more
can find-
seeds and plant them.
Yeah, that's right.
It
milkweed.
may not grow depending on how strip mine the area was.
Yeah, well, it's all strip mine. When you drive down Route 24, you look at that area. I can guarantee they probably found Indian cemeteries there, which you'll never know that they found them. There's so much, they tore that all up. It's
You're talking about site
unbelievable.
ready, right?
Yes, oh, wow. The one that's, as you drive on Route 24 and you go.
Yeah, right
down
alongside.
those
That's called
rivers,
site ready. It's off
Yeah,
of Eagleville.
yeah, that's quite-
Its entrance is off of Eagleville.
Quite- Yeah, that's quite a mess. And the other one.
We complained about them in the old days, but I don't know what the
Maggie.
deal was.
Tiverton Materials is still going, I believe, and we know that we talked about they breached the water table,
Yeah.
so.
Yeah, the quarry stuff is weird because I thought in the past they had to get permits from the town, and the town, of course, would automatically do it as if you paid the fee,
Yeah,
just like with the junkyards and some other stuff. But
yeah,
then you're right that they got into a big fight, and they found that there was some legislation that took local control away from at least one of the quarries, as long as they were doing
Yeah.
certain things, which was weird.
Yeah.
And
I
it
heard rumors
dates to
that-
the 70s, that law, and nobody's changed it since.
I
Yeah,
heard
it's a hot
rumors
potato.
claim that they actually were using the stones for the breakwater at the Navy base.
Yeah, the Stillwater
Rimmer
Basin,
Road.
right? Yeah, yeah.
So that's why there was legislation saying you can't touch them, they're doing this stuff, and it never changed. But I don't know how true that is, but I heard that comment.
It was still in effect because when the town tried to regulate it, the lawyers for the other
Yeah.
side said, this is still on the books, and it says you can't regulate
Yeah.
this.
Yeah,
So,
I think
Yeah.
I once.
but
sent
that
it-
was one specific quarry. It wasn't all quarries in town.
Oh, okay, so site ready probably is not definitely not. That's a new one, so they would not be under that
It
control.
was the Douglas one. It was the Douglas
Yeah,
one.
the Douglas. But now that's Tiverton Materials.
Right, but before
And that's-
that, it was Douglas,
Yes,
wasn't
it
it?
was
Douglas?
Yeah.
It was Douglas Properties, yes. They had the buffaloes, they had the quarry and
Right.
stuff.
Yeah, we'll have to check and see where that stands, because that hasn't come up in a while to my knowledge, but it was a problem because they breached the water table, which was bad news, and we were going to bring in a consultant to warn the town about all that, and the guy just, when he saw it, he was like, oh boy, what did I bite off here, and basically threw up his hands and left because all of our quarries were in bad shape. So
Yeah.
Anyway, we can try to follow up on that maybe with Chris Cotta and see where that's.
Sometime in the future, we should,
Yeah.
look into it.
Okay.
Because that is,
All right.
all right,
Anything else?
sorry, I held the meeting up longer.
No,
That's
we haven't
all
had
right.
that often. Yes? Are we all set?
No, I said to Tom, he shouldn't apologize. It's all right. We haven't met in forever.
Right.
Yeah.
So Tom, this is the last Zoom
Thank you,
with
Brenda.
Tom?
That's my understanding that requirement goes away on the 19th. So we got this one in under that, but after that, we have to revert back to face. That's
Oh.
my
Will that be the library or where will that be?
we can put it back to town hall if people want to do that. It doesn't really matter to me. I just have to reserve the room. If there's a place that you feel more comfortable meeting in because it's bigger maybe and spread out more, that's fine. Just if we pick a place, we have to just check and make sure. I don't think anybody else that's large overlaps our time. So the third Tuesday night of the month, but I'm not sure of that. I'll have to check.
If it was nice weather, you could actually sit outside.
Like those kids at Brown University on the quad, right?
Yeah, there you go.
I would say like you just suggested, Tom, I would prefer somewhere with just kind of good air ventilation. And I'm sure the library has good ventilation, but we're in a small room with the door closed. So
They have that bigger room too on the other side. We could use that one if nobody's using it. The one that holds more people probably holds, like, if it was totally full, it would hold over 50 or more.
oh
But,
yeah,
we don't get a crowd like that, so we
Yeah,
can spread out. Yeah.
yeah,
The senior center was a good place to go too.
Yeah, that's kind of spread out too. I'd have to see if they're still
Yeah.
doing
Yeah.
it at night.
yeah.
So people didn't mind going to that. So, because I know a lot of people live in the southern area. It's not too bad at night driving up there. It doesn't matter. I know which one to do. I can reserve it.
Well, the senior center, Tom, makes me feel old.
Yeah.
I was hoping you could get us in there for free and open up the kitchen.
Oh my God.
I think I prefer the library,
Okay.
but the bigger
Kind of middle of
room,
town, right?
or town hall. I think I'm with Richard. I think there's something gloomy about the senior center.
We used to meet in that old school that was up there. I don't remember the name of it, but for a while it was, it was open for town meetings. And I don't know how old that was, but that had to be from like the 20s or the teens.
Oh, that airflow quality is opening a window that hasn't been painted shut.
Hey, Tom, I'll offer my outdoor patio. There's plenty of room. I got plenty of chairs, tables.
But you have to let the public in.
Right, you do. That's
Oh,
the
that
issue.
can't be us, huh?
Well, no,
No.
you can hold it wherever you want, but the public has to have access.
Oh, I see. Yeah. Well, no, that won't fly.
No,
Oh.
heck no.
No, I
You might
thought,
get-
yeah, no, I got you.
Yeah, you might get
Strike that from the records.
All right. Okay.
Make a
I think
motion.
we're ready to go, and we appreciate the help we had from is it Mr. Reese, or I don't know how to say the last name, but for hosting the meeting for us and doing all the behind the scenes work to keep us running. So thank you to everybody, and well, I guess we'll meet in person in the near future. If not next month, if it's not too busy, it may not have it, but if we have stuff to do, we'll have it in April.
Okay, sounds like a